today we are going to be diving into Rocktomic Labs. We're going to look at the business model. We're going to look at the real risks inherent in this particular model and talk about some of the things from the point of view of a compliance officer. Every business, if you're starting one, you're going to need a chief financial officer, you're going to need a chief marketing officer, you're going to need a chief operating officer. Well, consider me like the chief compliance officer for your business, trying to give you my point of view in terms of FDA compliance, Health Canada compliance when it comes to dietary supplements. And we're going to look at the Rocktomic business model. We're going to be covering a lot of ground today. So check out the timestamps in the description down below for the particular sections that may interest you. A little bit of background about myself. I've been in the dietary supplement, natural health product world since 2004 from a compliance standpoint, working with Health Canada, FDA, having worked in organizations where we're auditing facilities, where we're picking facilities, manufacturers, the supply chain programs, setting all of that up, product registration, product development, label development, looking at ingredients, the whole breadth of quality, of regulatory. That's my background, that's my specialty. And I've had the pleasure of sitting in leadership roles, executive leadership roles in Fortune 500 organizations, as well as high profile privately owned companies where these guys are international. They have their own e-commerce platform, like hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, in gross revenue, in mass market distribution channels, retail channels, natural channels, club channels as well. So I've seen a lot, and really it's about bringing this point of view to the Rocktomic business model for those of you that are thinking about starting your own D2C supplement brand. And it's really important to have that point of view so that you can make an informed decision. So let's get to it. All right. Now, in front of me, I've got Rocktomic here, right? And like I said, I've been seeing this brand come up in my feeds on Facebook, on Instagram, and I was like, let's dig into this a little bit more. So let's first of all just look at the business model right away. And essentially, what they're offering you is this ability to start your own brand of supplements where you pick from their library of already made products that have been unlabeled, essentially. And then they just print out your label, put it on the bottle, and ship it out to your consumer once you get the order. So it's really cool from that standpoint, a simplified model that you don't have to carry any inventory, you don't have to worry about the shipping. And you only pay for the product once you make the sale. Now we're going to dive a little bit more as to how this works, but that's essentially their point of differentiation and the whole premise of their business model. But there are some things that we have to watch out for, and we're going to dive more into that later. But let's just look at the overall model here. So you got 150 supplements that you can pick from, that you can choose from. And we're going to take a look at the catalog. They do have some cool features here, at least on the surface, made in the USA, GMP, FDA. We're going to talk more about this because I would say that this is a little bit misleading. Now, they do offer you to see their private catalog. However, when you click on it, right away, what you're seeing here is that they need you to enter your name, your email address, and your phone number. So someone like myself, I'm not comfortable with giving out my phone number to another organization that I don't know about. So I'm not going to do that. And actually what you can do is just Google Rocktomic Catalog, which I've done here. It's going to pop up the link right there, and you can download that catalog. So essentially they're saying, you sell a supplement at $50, right? Let's say you've got your own website, your own portal, your own landing page. Someone buys the product, they pay $50, then it triggers Rocktomic to pull that money that is owed to them for the product and for the shipping. It's also going to trigger them to fulfill the product, slap the label on, and ship it to your consumer. Whatever is left is your profit. Now, that said, there is a membership to tap into this model. So you're not only just paying for this, you're paying a monthly cost to be a member of Rocktomic so you can tap into this model. Here it is. So our membership plans, they range from $59 to $257, and it just gives you the opportunity to sell more products as you progress. I also believe there's other like logo, labeling stuff, services that you can tap into as you progress. And so it's really up to you, but you have to keep in mind you're paying a monthly fee on top of the actual product. So I don't think that profit number that they gave us here is actually reflective of the true profit. The other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of their numbers that they're using to calculate assumes that you're able to sell products. You might not be able to sell a lot of products. You might realize that you're not able to sell one product a day, right? And so the monthly cost may be more than the actual profit you're making. So that's something you want to consider. However, I do think it's quite interesting of how they've built this, but there are a lot of inherent risks from a quality FDA standpoint. But again, we'll talk more about that later. Let's just see if there's anything else from a business model that we want to look at. So step one, you choose the products you want to sell. We're going to look at the catalog. Then you can design your own label, and then you can sell your product. Now, with regards to the label, I will say that this is not easy to do. They do have in-house designers, they say. I will tell you that from a compliance standpoint, I don't think they've got that expertise. I've already noticed a lot of issues with the labels that they're using. And maybe the client, the entrepreneur, maybe some of the viewers are the ones that are actually designing the labels. And you may not have that expertise, and now you're designing labels that are completely out of compliance. It's very evident on the shelf. It's very evident online, and it could land you into some troubles. It's just easy to pick apart, right? It's just easy to recognize, okay, this particular company doesn't know what they're doing. Let's do some enforcement action on them. Here are some costs. So yeah, the old way, right? Which is kind of true. The old way of, or the more traditional model of starting your own supplement company is you going to a manufacturer and you buying some inventory from them. You create your own custom formula, you pick the ingredients, and you work with them. And I would say they're kind of overinflated, a lot of these costs. I don't think they're that much. And a lot of these manufacturers are one-stop shops, right? So they will design your label, they will review your label, they'll ship it out for you and all these things. So something to keep in mind, but I think these numbers are overinflated. But the overall premise here that they're trying to get at is that you're going to have to hold inventory, you're going to buy inventory, you have to put your money up front right away, and the inventory may expire. Whereas with Rocktomic, they're doing that. They're building out the inventory, they store it in their warehouse. You don't have to worry about it. And I think what they're doing is they have contracts with a whole bunch of other suppliers, with other manufacturers, and they just make the product. They have it stored in their warehouse that are unlabeled, and as you sell or as their consumers sell, then they just wrap a label on and send it out. Now, that in itself may not sound like a bad thing, and from a sales or business, the conventional business side, it's fine, but from a compliance side, there are a lot of problems that it may pose, and hopefully Rocktomic has the right capabilities to address these things. So here's the catalog. Let's take a look at that. This is the 2020 SKU catalog. And they've got various logos here, which we're going to dive more into. I don't think these are particularly, I think these are a little bit misleading. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more later. And then here are the products. Here are all the products that you can purchase, right? That you can sell under your label. And they've got different categories: weight loss and detox, right? Women's health, hair, skin, and beauty, men's beard care, right? So lots to choose from. And then here are the prices you pay depending on the membership level, right? So the higher the level, the cheaper the product would be, of course. And you can also look at the particular ingredients or the label of the product. So here's green tea plus, and when you click on that, here's what pops up. You've got an example label that you can then put your company name on there, right? You could probably make it more fanciful, more colors, whatever you want to do here, but you can see the guts of the label, right? And there's some claims on there: assists metabolism, supports energy levels, promotes weight loss. The average consumer wouldn't know this, but a compliance officer, someone who's well-versed in regulatory affairs in the supplements world, can already identify some interesting nuances or issues with this label that isn't particularly reflected here in the supplement facts, at least from my point of view. And this is something that, it sends a little bit of a flag to me, because I feel like there's very little flexibility for you to change the supplement fact. They've got information like 50% extract, 98% extract, 50% extract. Well, what does that mean? Right, to the actual person. I think this is why you want to have someone that knows how to build labels, so the consumer actually understands what this is delivering. So for example, green coffee bean, if it's an extract, what's the extraction ratio, right? What, that's kind of important. Raspberry ketone extract, and what part of the raspberry, so the plant part. So there's a lot of things that the average consumer or perhaps your consumer base wants to know about that this supplement facts label just doesn't capture. But that's just a really rough example of potential for non-compliance when it comes to labeling. You've got claims, assist metabolism, support energy levels. Well, how are they substantiating these things? So there's some things that we have to watch out for, but you get the general gist. And then I guess you would just pick the product and you would market it on your website, and you're good to go. So that's the business model. Let's take a look at BBB, right? Better Business Bureau. So they've got a customer review of 1.9 out of 5 stars, so not great. They've got 16 complaints. Let's take a look at that. And you guys can peruse this, but I mean, it already sends like a message to a lot of us, right? And is this a company you want to work for? I know that they have testimonials on their website, but you got to do your due diligence, right? And you really want to do your research before you pour in your heart and soul into your business using a partner like Rocktomic. This particular complaint was in February, so last month at the time of this shooting of this video, and it looks like company sales team has been harassing me via text and email, sometimes 5 in the same day, at least once per month. Wow, so that's not good, which I'm glad I didn't send in my phone number, right, for the catalog. And it looks like they're requesting a cease and communication from Rocktomic Labs. Rocktomic is saying, we do not own the platform, nor do we send these messages out in-house. We contract out to a third-party service who are not in compliance. Well, what are you doing about that, Rocktomic? Right? Just because you contracted out doesn't mean that you don't have to worry about the problem, right? And this is a flag already, because if they're going to take this approach, you know, that their customer service is contracted out, well, guess what? What else are they contracting out? They're manufacturing, right? And they're labeling, and all these production things are all contracted out. So if you have a problem, they're going to be like, sorry, we contract that out, not my problem. You go deal with it. Not the most professional, especially if Rocktomic has their name on this business model, on their business. They should be the ones accountable. They should not use this as an excuse, and they should just say, we're going to go look into it and deal with it and address that for you. So already a flag, and considering how recent this has been an issue, but not particularly surprising. Another one here. We hired Rocktomic to provide a custom protein blend. This was provided, but all parties agreed it was incorrect and would be remade. This was supposed to happen within 7 days. 4 months later, they refused to talk to us or return our money. Yikes. That's not good. And I think this is the problem when you have a Rocktomic model, because they're relying on their manufacturers. They don't own any manufacturing facilities. And so they're relying on their production schedule. You know, they only have so much say within the manufacturing piece of it. And knowing how they treated the other guy, the other complaint here, you know, it's a third party, we don't deal with it, and they just kind of ignore you. This is a flag as well from my standpoint. It looks like they have resolved it. I don't even know if they did, but they responded to it. The client has agreed to a resolution personally finalized by the CEO of Rocktomic. Why does it have to be personally finalized by the CEO of Rocktomic? This should be part of your regular operation process to address these types of things. There are going to be production issues with any manufacturer, right? Rocktomic, you're in the manufacturing business. Even though you think you're not, you actually are. You are considered the manufacturer for your supply, for your consumers, right? Because they're going to you to make this product. And for you to just point or say, hey, it's not an issue, you can't do that. And FDA will have an issue with that as well, I suspect. So this is something that you have to be armed with, this type of information. But yeah, definitely check out. There's quite a number here, so you definitely want to watch, or at least read these and see, well, what kind of issues are they having? Because again, this is your livelihood, and this is why I'm here. And I do help businesses out in terms of starting their supplement line, their D2C supplement line, to address these types of issues, to foresee these types of issues, and advise you guys on it so that you don't run into these issues, or at least you know what the risks are before you make your decision. So one thing I want to talk about here is how they say, you know, create your own supplement or CBD brand with no risk. There is risk, guys. There's risk because you're making an ingestible or a consumable, something that someone would have to eat, right? You're putting into your own bodies. There's a lot of risk inherent in just that act alone. There's a lot of regulations, right, tied to supplements. And for those of you that are thinking that the supplement industry isn't regulated, let's quickly look at that. FDA DSHEA regulations, right? All right, so FDA regulates both finished dietary supplement products and dietary ingredients. So the ingredients that go into your dietary supplements, those are all regulated under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. So first of all, it's important for you to understand that it is regulated. And for Rocktomic, to say that you can create your own supplement or your own CBD brand with no risk is a bit misleading, or quite a bit misleading. And we're talking about supplements. CBD is a completely different thing altogether. And I will tell you right now, by law, CBD is actually illegal, right? In a lot of places, a lot of states in the US. And so there are certain states that have decriminalized CBD, right? Or at least hemp. And there are a lot of companies that are taking advantage of that, but within that particular state. But to say it, US wide is not accurate. So this is something that you have to be wary of, because again, this is your livelihood, right? Even though you're not putting up a lot of money up front, your reputation, your time, your investment from that standpoint is big, right? It's huge. So you want to be careful about this. So let's talk about this whole, the claims. And when it comes to regulations, it's important to understand that from the point of view of FDA, the company that's on the product label is considered the brand owner, and they consider you the manufacturer. They consider that company as a manufacturer. Whether or not you actually have a manufacturing facility, they still consider the brand owner as the manufacturer. So they're going to go after you for compliance, they're going to go after you for fines or for other enforcement action. Okay, so even though you've used Rocktomic and Rocktomic is using their own suppliers, it doesn't matter. If it's got your name on it, they're going to go after you. And at the end of the day, you're the one responsible. That's why this is so important for you to understand these regulations, or at least have an advisor to guide you through it so that you understand the decisions that you're taking, right? And the risks that are tied to them. Because your name's on the line, and you could be the one, facing these fines or going to prison, in the most extreme case, from an FDA standpoint, right? When you're making false, misleading claims, you can't just say, oh, well, Rocktomic made those claims, right? Or that, hey, I'm just using their model. FDA is like, okay, but what did you do about it? How did you check in on it? How did you verify that? They're all over you, not Rocktomic, all right? So you are carrying a lot of the risks. You might not be carrying the financial risks, but you are carrying a lot of the other compliance risks, okay? So I really want to be clear about that. Now, let's talk about some of the claims from Rocktomic. This is the compliance officer in me coming out, all right? And this, again, I'm just using this to give us an idea of what's really behind Rocktomic. If we just, if we dive deeper from, more informed position, what are we really seeing here? So the first thing I want to give you an example of is they're saying that their product is made in the USA. Well, guess what? It's not. So you cannot actually put this statement on your product. I don't want you to think that you can. I think technically what they're trying to say is that their manufacturers are located in the US. Okay. But the term made in the USA, and to put that on your product, or to put that on your product, let alone Rocktomic's products, right? There are regulations tied to this phrase. Made in the USA, product of USA, even just putting American flag, they're all seen the same, all right, from a statement standpoint. And here's the regulation, FTC, Federal Trade Commission, made in the USA, all right? The standard for unqualified made in USA claims. That means if you were to just put made in the USA, what is the standard you have to hit? Here it is, right? Essentially, you have to say your product must be all or virtually all made in the US. In order for you to say made in the US, all or virtually all of the components of your product must be made in the US. When it comes to supplements, we're talking about your bottle, your label, your cap, your lid, the labor, plus the ingredients that go into your product must be all or virtually all. Now you're probably thinking like, well, Brian, what about virtually all? What does that mean? Well, there's no real number, all right? They've acknowledged that here in the guidance. But I will say it's a very high number if you had to put a number on the table. 99%, 90, right? Something like that, okay? And this gives you a little bit leeway because maybe you have your ingredient, it was for the most part made in the US, but maybe it used sub-ingredients that came from another country. And in that case, perhaps the virtually all will help you. But for the vast majority of products, you're talking about 99% of your product being made in the US. And when you look at Rocktomic, right, when you look at their products, you look at their price points, right, you look at the types of ingredients that they're using, chances are they're not using made in the USA ingredients. Made in the USA ingredients are very expensive, right? You got to pay for the labor, you have to pay for the manufacturing, you got to pay for the facility, you got to pay for the ingredients, all of it. And the costs of doing that in the US are obviously higher than, say, India or China or somewhere else, right? So the chances of them using an overseas ingredient is quite high, so that it would boost their profit margins, right? And I'm not saying that these other ingredients are necessarily bad. There are good ingredient manufacturers out overseas. There definitely is. But my point here is that you can't make the claim made in the USA, even though they've got it here on their website, they've got it on their YouTube videos, and they're kind of giving the perception that their product is made in the USA. It's not. And you can't just slap that onto your product, because the FTC will have these standards, and they do, and it's by law, and if you don't meet it, then they can go after you. Made in FDA Registered Facility, like, let's think about this statement. It's FDA registered, not FDA approved. FDA doesn't necessarily approve facilities, but they do require by law that all facilities be registered. And registered means you submit the information, the address of your facility and what you do to an online database. It's not that hard. And really, all facilities are supposed to be registered. So again, there's nothing unique here, but they put this fancy logo, they made it all up, and they try to give it some sort of level of importance. Well, you're supposed to be in an FDA registered facility. There's nothing special about this. GMP, consistent quality, like, it better be GMP. Again, it's in the regulations. The Dietary Supplement Education Act is in there on how to manufacture dietary supplements. So again, this is like the basic requirement. You better have GMP. For them to put this logo, I mean, I get it, for the average consumer, maybe this is something that they're looking for, but someone like myself, I'm like, all right, this is the bare minimum, right? This is my food and water and oxygen, right? Thanks. The last thing here is third-party certified for purity and potency. Again, I don't know what this means. It is third-party lab tested. Like, of course it would be. Not every facility has their own in-house lab. I do trust third-party labs more in certain instances, but it really depends on what lab are they using. I could use a mom-and-pop lab down the street, and they could use a method that's inconsistent, or they could tweak the method to get a favorable result. And on top of it, they say it's tested for purity and potency. Great. But what kind of test method are they using? How often are they testing for it? And what are their specifications? So they don't really tell you much. They're just saying that it's tested at a third-party lab. Again, bare minimum, you better be doing this. It's not necessarily anything fancy, but they put these logos and they kind of give the impression that it's fancier. But from a compliance standpoint, there's nothing new here. There's nothing particularly special about this place. There are other facilities that I've worked with that have they get third-party audited, and they use these certification bodies that are very, very well known, that I've worked with personally, that I know are very stringent in their requirements and give these manufacturers a hard time, and that's what you really want to look for. All right, so the next thing I want to hit on is just the labels, and this is something that I always watch for when I look at the collateral or the marketing information catalogs, because it gives me a sense of how strong they are from a regulatory standpoint. Or a compliance standpoint. And it's really easy for people to get labels wrong. And I will say that the labeling regulations is quite complicated. And again, I've got a lot of years of experience, and I've seen, through trial and error and training and all those, I've seen a lot. But I think it's important to understand, okay, well, if they're still making mistakes and putting that on their material, what does that say about them? And again, they may put any label you give them. But what if you wanted to put on your label that you could cure asthma or eczema or heart disease? These are no claims. The FDA will not let you do this, but will Rocktomic let you? Right? And if they are they watching? Like, are they going to notify you? How are they going to protect you? Right? Or they just want your money and they don't care. Right? So this is why I always look out for, how do their labels look? And I understand that this is, a generic label. So maybe they change things when it goes to market, but right away, red superfood, right? Kiwi strawberry flavor, high antioxidant formula. I can tell you right now, antioxidant is a regulated term. So there are requirements here and they're not meeting those requirements. You need to specify, well, what are the nutrients you're referring to that are antioxidants? Now, to the average person, health professional, maybe you're starting your own brand, but you are a health enthusiast and you would be thinking, well, no, these fruits, these superfoods, they have lots of antioxidants. I get that part. But when we look at the regulations, when we look at the laws, they see it very differently. And they have very specific conditions. So we were trying to meet that standard, not necessarily what we know in our professional life with our clientele, right, in our clinical practice, etc. All right. Plus, we have to remember these products, these are powders, for example. This is obviously a powder. It undergoes processing, you're drying the product, right? So you're probably going to lose a lot of the nutrition just out of that processing or over time, just the shelf life, right? I mean, the raw materials are sitting somewhere in the warehouse, somewhere in the facility. It's not being used fresh, right? I mean, it's still within its shelf life, but there's always going to be some natural level of deterioration, right? So that's why FDA has these requirements when it comes to antioxidant. They don't want people to mislead the consumers. And so I do argue that antioxidant is regulated, to say high antioxidant, high in, low in, right? Low in fats, etc. Those are also regulated too. So there's certain requirements we have to make sure that our formula meets if you want to say it's high in something. I mean, what's the bar? Right? FDA does have a bar, right? So that's what we want to watch out for. And then they talk about the serving size, servings per container, and the net weight. And the font size around these things are also regulated, the net weight, and it's obviously not meeting that. And I also think that they forgot to put the word dietary supplement on here, which is also a requirement. So right away, you're seeing a lot of gaps in their product labeling, in their marketing information. So what does that say about them? So this is definitely something that you want to be aware of when it comes to designing your products, your labels. You want to make sure it's compliant because, if it's sitting on the shelf somewhere or it's sitting on your online store and it looks like out of compliance, it's really easy for me to pick on it. It's really easy for an enforcement officer to pick on it. It's easy for your consumers to recognize, something doesn't look right, and then maybe tell the FDA. Or it's just like, hey, look at my product. I don't know what I'm doing, is essentially what it's screaming. When it comes to my overall thoughts with Rocktomic, would I use them? Probably not. Now, if you've got a great following, and you've got a loyal following and you think that this would be a great way for you to dabble into the supplement market just to see if your market is interested in it, with fairly low financial risk, knowing that there's all these other problems and you're okay with that and you want to just give it a try, okay, I understand if you really want to do it. Personally, I'd be wary. I'd rather go to my own manufacturer, put up the money. I mean, you can negotiate, right? You can look for a smaller manufacturer, get lower minimums. There's ways to do this that I think would make more sense. And again, if you've got a great following and it's loyal, there's other ways to test the market without producing your own product, right? You could do some sort of pre-launch, right? Get funding in that way, or just engage with your audience and see if they'd be open to it. And then if you have that opportunity, then it doesn't matter whether you use Rocktomic or your own manufacturer. Plus, you have more control. And on top of it, I'd recommend that you get an advisor, such as myself or another consultant, to help you along the way to build up your brand, to build up your label, to build up your concept, and make sure the ingredients are right. And that's the other thing too. For you probably have a point of differentiation in your product. You don't get that with Rocktomic, right? Like you order creatine or green tea extract, you're getting the same stuff that everyone else is getting. So how is your product really that much different? Other than your brand, and that your audience recognizes you, the quality of the ingredients, the quality of the product, there's no point of differentiation there. For you to say that you've got a high quality product and it's better than other things is not true, right? So, for you might have a different angle of your product marketing, your product testing. You might have a different angle in terms of where the ingredients come from. You need more control. And so the more conventional method of starting that business, reaching out to your own manufacturers, selecting them, getting the right MOQ, putting up the money for the inventory might make more sense. And that's where my heart would be leaning towards, rather than say this particular model. But that's just me. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are very successful with Rocktomic. It is a good, interesting way for you to dabble, get into the supplement line without much commitment. And if it doesn't work, at least you found out and you're done. Hopefully, if you cancel your membership, hopefully if you want them to stop reaching out to you, that they actually follow through. If you want more videos, playlist here, as well as if you need some help, if you'd like some advice to help you start your business, know that I'm available. I'll have my contact information in the link down below. Feel free to email me or leave a comment as well. All right, guys, that's it. Talk to you later. Cheers.